Thanks for joining us for another one of our coffee break technology series webinars. Today, we're going to talk about Windows 11. Interestingly, that several years ago, Microsoft said that Windows 10 was going to be the last version of Windows, but surprise, surprise, we now have Windows 11. And joined today by Paul Hager, our Director of Solutions. Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Jeff.
Paul and I are actually in the same room. Which is the first time we've done a webinar in the same room. Our offices are next to each other, but we usually close the door and do these separately. So excited to do that. So yeah, very interesting that Microsoft launched a new platform, a new operating system, which is rolling out now and available to people to download and start to use. So we want to talk about, why does this matter for businesses? What should they consider? Is this something that people should be concerned with or excited about? All of those kinds of things. So as always, we would love to hear questions from you. If you're pondering anything that we aren't asking or you want to make sure that we do cover, please use the Q&A little section of your Zoom control panel. If you hover over your screen, you'll see those pop up at the bottom. So you can do that, and we'll try to get them answered as we go. All right, Paul. So like I mentioned, 2015, Windows announced they'd never do this again. And here we go with the new version. Windows 10 is on its way out with an end date, and Windows 11 is in. So let's talk about this. The timing is interesting. Let's talk about that. What made Microsoft decide, to release this when they did, and what do you think has changed, and what's good about this new version?
Yeah, first of all, my Windows 10 is fully immunized, so we don't need to worry about. Is it too soon?
maybe too soon.
It's too soon.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's good to know that, though.
It is good to know that. So Windows 11, right? When Microsoft said this is the last operating system ever, we all, I think, in the industry knew that even if they wouldn't change the number, there was always going to be new iterations of what they're doing. They have to continue to evolve the platform, and I think we can kind of read through the tea leaves a little bit based on some of the features that we have seen and know are a part of 11. We can kind of read through it where Microsoft needed to go and where areas they felt were really critical around communication, integration with this new work from home, the split between personal and our business lives, support for teams and collaboration in more depth. And I think one of the really interesting ones too is their support of the Android store and launching Linux-based applications from within the Windows environment. I think those are the tea leaves that we read and go, Microsoft needed to push something more major than they could in a Windows 10 feature pack to launch those features. And those give us some sense to where Microsoft's direction is as an organization. And I think what's interesting is the data Microsoft gives us is that people spent more time in their Windows 10 machines than ever before during COVID, right? This work from home is good, but it also means it has this weird inverse effect where your machine is always with you or in the other room at home. And so you're actually in front of it more than ever. And Microsoft's own data from their kind of back-end graph API tells them people spent more time in their operating system than ever before this last year.
Yeah, that is interesting. And probably not good for some, probably good for Microsoft. So you mentioned a few things that have changed with this version, but tell us a little bit more about that and what you think some of the biggest things that Microsoft users will notice when they install the new OS.
Sure. So the eye candy is always the stuff people are going to notice first, right? Windows 11 has, there's just no other way to describe it, a more Mac type feel to it, right? The start menu at default is moved to the center. And when you click on it in the center of your screen, it pops up like a dock. So if you've ever operated on a Mac OS device for any portion of your life, you're going to feel oddly at home with the navigation of the system. And, we used to, remember when we used to go to the start menu? It was always in the lower left. And that was the way you got to programs, right? Your whole life was start, all programs, Microsoft, Word. You did all of those clicks all day long. Boy, how far we've come that they put the Windows icon in the center, you click on it, and Microsoft's own AI makes a decision about what app you are likely to need to launch next. And that's the icon it puts in front of you to make sure that it's readily at your fingertips, not only the most recent application or what it believes you are likely to use, but also the most recent documents you've used from within the Office suite. And I don't know about other folks in this call, but I use that all the time. I on iPad. I might be working on something in my virtual desktop, my AVD, and then I want to switch to just my iPad to pull up a PowerPoint. I know with confidence if I just launch the generic Office 365 for iPad app, the product underneath is called Delve, that is looking at what I have done recently. That PowerPoint that I just worked on is going to be there just waiting for me. I can just click on it and launch it. I used to have to remember where I saved it to. And I have complete confidence that Microsoft's going to figure out what it is I need to launch next. So I think that's really interesting.
One of the many things in our world today that's like, well, that's convenient and creepy.
And creepy.
All together.
But way more productive.
Yeah.
I mean, we have spent so much of our lives navigating my computer to put things in a particular folder, and our shared drive always marked the S drive. Like it becomes this mythical creature in your office. Oh, that's on the J drive. Oh, we've used the U drive for years here. Like that, those are conversations that have changed. It's more about giving people access to the information they need when they need it. And that's a big change for a lot of offices. I mean, the number of projects we've done the last 12 months to get rid of the sacred S drives and move those into OneDrive and SharePoint. I mean, it's every month we're doing these, and it's not a technology problem to make that move. It's a people and change management problem to make that move, because we have just been wired for it. So Windows 11 just makes that even more creepy and more readily available. And I remember being in Redmond, I think 3 years ago now, back when we traveled places. And Microsoft has these envisioning centers in Redmond, which is the future. You have to sign a separate NDA before you can go in there. You can see what Microsoft technology is doing 5 to 10 years down the road, stuff that will most likely never make it to market. And I remember one of the things in that center that they showed us was just a giant tablet, like the size of a 50-inch TV tablet. And when you walked up to it, it used AI to determine at 8 a.m. normally you launch Outlook, and normally you start working on this PowerPoint that you will need for a presentation that it knows you're going to give at 2 o'clock. And I'm like, that's creepy. That's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. We're not far from that. I think that part of that journey, I think is pretty close. The other thing you're going to experience is Teams. Teams is invaded our lives. The webinar we're doing this afternoon is our first on Teams, and this one might be the last we do using Zoom. This might be our farewell coffee talk with Zoom. And it's not that Zoom's done anything wrong other than not to be Teams, right? Which is where we live our lives. And so you'll find Teams pre-installed in Windows 11, wire it into it. It'll have a little bit different icon, but it's not an option. It's just a part. And they would think of it more, sorry to make things like Mac. I use FaceTime a lot because it's the only way I talk to my daughter, but it'll be like FaceTime. It's just there, and you can use it whether you're an Office 365 business subscriber or not. So Teams, to a degree, is with certain features is free, more like you would find FaceTime or Facebook Messenger or something like that.
Interesting. So some interesting features, cool features. I think one of the things we pride ourselves on is not bringing technology for technology's sake, but because it solves business problems or helps drive a business forward to increase revenue, reduce cost, or manage risk, reduce risk. So if you're a business leader or technology leader, which we've got a whole bunch of them on the webinar today, why would they consider this upgrade? Is it something they should be seeking or something they should be avoiding? What's your thoughts on that, and what kind of impact do you think it will have?
Yeah, so we are always interested in bleeding edge technology. We are not believers that all of our clients should adopt bleeding edge technology. We think technology should be a differentiator. It should be a part of a comprehensive technology management strategy. And today is really just one of the many steps that you should have to talk about when this transition will happen, not immediately, but down the road. But yeah, I think that just kind of underlies the statement of what we view about technology. Knowing where it's going helps inform your technology management plan. And you need to be making those plans way, way in advance. And so, the end of life date, first and foremost, businesses need to know that whenever Microsoft announces a new product, it means the death of another product. And so in this case, Windows 10, which I think has been a great operating system. We used to have like this every other operating system thing with Microsoft. Windows 7 was good, 8.1 was trash, 10 was good, kind of 95 was good, and then Millennium was trash, and then they just have always kind of like put out a terrible one in between. So we'll see where Windows 11 is in the world. But Windows 10's dead October 14th of 2025. So
3 years from now.
3 years from now.
4 years from now.
4 years from now. So you go, all right, that's way out there. You're not ahead of the curve. You're being silly. Well, buy hardware with an expectation, a laptop or a desktop, of having 3 to 5 years of life on it. So it's not long that when you order hardware, hopefully from Elevity, we're going to ask you, do you want it to be downgraded to Windows 10 with a Windows 11 sticker on the bottom of it? Or do you want it to come with Windows 11? And Windows 11 will at some point in the next year and a half become the default on new devices that we may have to unwind, or and then there'll eventually be a period where we can't unwind it unless you literally have professional services done to remove it. So keep in mind, while the end date is 2025, the ship date of it starting to be available is going to be sooner than that, much sooner than that.
Yeah, so availability will be an issue sooner than later. But the end of life, the 2025 thing, means it's no longer available, no longer supported, no longer updated.
Yep.
So there becomes a security challenge.
Correct.
So you can decide in the next year, if you have a 3-year life cycle on your devices, a year from now, you're going to buy a device, and you're either going to have it start with a Windows 11, or will have to move to Windows 11 before the useful life or the depreciated life of that device is done.
Yep.
Or you'll have an unsupported operating system.
Right.
So that's really where the decision needs to be made.
Right.
And probably start testing applications that you use to see how it works on the new operating system, and
that's
make sure you can print in color if
Yeah.
you're a Gordon Flush customer.
Lots of
all of that stuff. Yeah.
Printers are a big deal. You bring up a really good point, which is to start to test applications. If you're a law firm on this call, your VCIO can help you check out whether PC Law or Time Matters is Windows 11 ready. Every company, and just so everybody knows, Windows 11 has been available to developers for well over 6 months. So if you ever have a software application that's like, well, Windows 11 just dropped, we're completely caught off guard, so it's going to be a while before we support it. You can tilt your head at those companies a little bit, because developers do get some level of early access so that they can start testing compatibility with it. But absolutely, print drivers are always the first monster that are the kind of the reason why, other than your home machine or a virtual machine that you test out at, or you're one of those people that can handle things not working well right away, but you want the latest stuff. Unless you're in that category, you need to stay Windows 10 until we can kind of vet through those applications and make sure that they get the big green check. Is it a foundationally different kernel? Is it moving away from the Windows registry, these kind of big pie in the sky ideals that people have hoped for in future Microsoft releases? No, it's not. So in that respect, this shouldn't be a huge lift and shift for developers. And I think you'll find Windows 11 compatibility checkboxes coming pretty fast for most hardware and most software platforms pretty quickly. But it's not there yet. And we are pretty firm believers here that until that major first major bug fix feature pack, usually 3 to 4 months out from the launch of an operating system, you really shouldn't run your business on it, because we know it's just so early. We don't know what we don't know yet, neither does Microsoft, which is why they want early adopters to get out there and start testing it. We don't want you to be an early adopter unless you really, really have to be.
Yeah, so that was kind of my next question, is timing and when you would recommend it. So it's after that first major service pack.
Yep.
You're kind of dialed into a lot of things, technology, but specifically Microsoft. What have you heard about the new operating system? How do people feel about it? Are there some major misses that need to be fixed with a patch that's coming out? And have you heard about when that might be?
Yeah, no early like big red flags like, oh my goodness, search doesn't work, or there's these cataclysmic, blue screens of death that we're seeing all the time. One of our technical leaders here, Travis Olson's been running on Windows 11 basically since it came out, since it went GA. Yep. I think the very next day, and has been really happy with that contextualized start menu. He moved it back to the left, but right away. But no major hiccups for him, and he's living in the Microsoft world. We here at Elevity, like a lot of organizations, are pretty Microsoft centric in our application set. We use web browser and the Office 365 suite predominantly to perform our day-to-day tasks. And so, all of those things were obviously Microsoft products and pretty early and ready to go. pretty easy for us to be an early adopter in some places, but and runs a little faster, which is interesting. Just a
little lighter,
just a hair more spry, and that could just be that first day install feeling to it. But you know, you're not going to see huge performance gains across it. And every new operating system always moves the hardware requirements forward a little bit. You know, that part of that's part conspiracy, part just what Microsoft needs. But yeah, it's not going to revive your 2000 Windows 2000 laptop from the days of yore and suddenly make it great. Install is still the same size. You know, it's not suddenly a whole lot lighter. The Windows 10, Windows 11 IoT edition, that is a 300 meg version of the Microsoft operating system. You see it on thin clients and your conference room devices and stuff like that. So Windows can get that small. It's just a different world.
That's 10, right? Is there a forecast for when 11 will come out in that
for the IoT
flavor?
space? Yeah. I don't know the exact date, but that's it's at this point IoT edition is still 10, but okay, they'll come out with an 11 version of that as well.
All right, good. Reminder to post any questions. We're probably going to wrap up here in a minute, so or a few minutes. If you have any questions that we haven't addressed, please feel free to drop those in. You know, anything else about Windows 11 or new feature set in the Office platform that you know would be valuable to talk about since we're kind of on the topic?
Yeah, I think there are two more features of 11 that are worth talking about with our business community. One is this integration with the Android store and the ability to launch Android applications natively. You know, Microsoft is one of the largest consumers and buyers of the Linux operating system, which seems like directly counter, but most of what runs in their public cloud in Microsoft Azure is actually Linux virtual machines. They bought GitHub, the largest repository of mostly Linux-based open sourced applications under Satya. So Satya Nadella, their current CEO, has really had a very big shift from the Ballmer era into pro Linux, and I think Windows 11 and its integration with Android tells us a few things. One, the continuation of that lack of fear of Linux-based packages, but two, you know, why support an Android mobile phone platform inside of Windows 11 unless you're about to try to get back into the phone business, which I mean, that was Ballmer's biggest miss ever, right? He failed getting Microsoft into phones, and it's hurt them in that space every day since. And their little foldable phone, while interesting, didn't get traction either. And so do they really want to build out another ecosystem of mobile apps and compete against the App Store? Or do they want to go make frenemies with Google? I think that's clear that that's what they're going to do. And I think it's clear that a Windows 11 mobile powered by Android is in the works, and it'll be interesting to see what phone platforms they release that on.
Yeah, I mean, it feels directionally that the devices are getting smaller and applications can work on multiple devices. And you know, if you could power off your PC or close your laptop and have all of those same applications available on your phone to plug into a monitor somewhere else, that feels like that's possible, or we're heading in the direction where that could be possible.
Right.
So yeah, interesting. We do have a couple questions that have come in here before we wrap up. Do they make it harder to get to the control panel? Is that something that you know?
No, it's in the same spot and accessed the same way like Windows 10. I see the next question is kind of a follow-up to that. Can you have multiple of those settings windows open at the same time? So, which is a great lead into another feature of Windows 11, which is these kind of workspaces concepts. Oh, yeah. So you can swipe left and right between personal, business, and gaming, but it also means you kind of have three virtual desktops is what they call them, but that's kind of a terrible naming convention because it's not actually independently virtualized machines. It's the same operating system.
You used Workspaces before. I think that's probably
more appropriate. So you could have a control panel window open in one workspace and one open in the other workspace and flip between the two pretty easily. Also, a Windows 11 feature that I think might be near and dear to your heart, Jeff, is they have worked on a new snappable grid for Windows, like the windows that you want to have open for when you dock and use external monitors.
Oh.
Yeah, so like when you dock if you're used to having three windows open and you want this one this big and this one this big, not full screen, but you want to be able to see these couple of things, it will remember that about your external monitor when you dock and snap back to that grid.
When do I upgrade?
Yeah, Not early adopting, Jeff, not early adopting. But I think they are, and the Workspaces concept and the docking station work and Teams, those are all in direct response to the new kind of hybrid workforce world that we are in, right? They know people are docking a lot. They know people are using Teams as a default communication, and they know that people aren't just using their work machine for work stuff. So if you are on this call and an IT admin, I know you've told all your users to only use your work machine for work stuff, but I'm going to let you in on a secret.
Y'all know they aren't.
Y'all know they aren't.
Yeah.
They have Facebook open, their Gmail account open, whatever it might be. And so Microsoft's nod to that is, all right, it's time to tell people, we know you do that. Keep that in your personal workspace and keep your business workspace up. You know, I don't know if anybody's been on a Zoom call where the person talking has been sharing their screen and they're flipping between applications and you see they got their personal Facebook up or something. I think there's been a few embarrassing YouTube videos about what people have had open in their tabs. And I think some people have lost their jobs along the way. So I think the personal workspace thing will help.
That's a good question. Yeah. From an IT perspective, is 11 going to be more advantageous than 10?
That's good. Yeah, that's a good question. Like, is there more manageability features, or is there things that will make IT admins worlds particularly better? Nothing, nothing major, like, other than continuing to leverage some of the features that they built in 10 around Windows to 10 auto deploy. I think just keeping down the IT requests you get around things like getting Teams installed and working, or my docking station is struggling to bring up monitors. I watch our service desk ticket volume. There's a lot of stuff about docking stations and monitors and things like that. So I think those pieces will continue to have support or to improve, but still Microsoft Intune integrated, still available for Windows 10 Autopilot or Windows 11 Autopilot. Again, Autopilot is that ability. If you haven't messed around with that as an IT administrator, really look into it. It's you enter the serial number of your device into your Office 365 portal, and when that device comes online, it can auto deploy the Office 365 suite, connect Azure AD, join the machine. It really allows you to, we know the serial number of your device before it ships from distribution. And so we can actually put that into your Office 365 account. We could drop ship a laptop to a remote user that you have. They could turn it on and it could start configuring itself once it connects to the internet. So you don't have to ship stuff to your office and then set up the domain and do all these things and then reship it out to your end users. And Autopilot's been around now for a year and a half, 2 years. It's pretty well baked. And Windows 11 will continue to have all those great integrations with Intune and Office 365. And again, if you're Office 365, Business Premium or E5 or any of those packages, you had Windows 10 enterprise rights, you now have Windows 11 enterprise rights. I mean, we don't love maybe the subscription service model of Microsoft at all times, but in these instances, it continues to mean that you get access to the latest technology as it becomes available.
Yeah, love the flexibility of that. Maybe not the cost and the ongoing, but yeah, that is valuable. Last question, I think then we'll wrap up. Do you know anything about the printing technology?
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft is trying to work. I mean, we all know the print spooler is kind of like Windows Terminal Services. It's made in the 2000s and maybe not ready. So there is new Microsoft cloud printing capabilities that they are trying to work from to eliminate the management of print servers. It is super new, and Microsoft is in very early iterations of this technology. I think it's good that we're heading this direction, because managing print drivers and running a server 2019 server just to push out print drivers to a machine feels like very uncloud-like, un-Microsoft-like. Early runs at this that we've done with some clients, it's not fully ready for prime time, and it's got a lot of challenges to it. I think a lot like mobile printing and things like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Microsoft continues to evolve in that direction. It's a great question. It's something to keep an eye on. And you can search, you can Bing it or Google it, Microsoft Office 365 roadmap or Microsoft roadmap, and there's a great website that will tell you what features are coming and when they are rolling out. we get some early access, some stuff that's not on what they call public roadmap, but everything at the Microsoft roadmap website is obviously public roadmap. And I know we have some clients that have watched for, 1,000 people support in Teams meetings, which is now out. The webinar we're doing later today is going to be a Teams webinar, which you just set up like a Teams meeting inside of the Teams application. That was a roadmap item 4 months ago. That's now live and breathing and doing well. I know we have some folks waiting for sharing audio in a virtual desktop session. You can't share the computer's audio right now today. That's coming out January, February of next year. Inside of their web-based, you can join a Teams meeting via the web and share your computer's audio using the web is going to be their workaround for it. So we're always checking that roadmap for clients, and but it's public information that people can utilize.
Yeah, good. Well, the last point that was made, I think is a good one, is that there's that PC health check option that you can run to see if your device is ready or eligible for the upgrade, and just being aware of what is required and making sure that that's thought through. Like with anything, if you're going to make an upgrade and start to put people in, on 11, make sure that we're thinking about you're using your resources. If that's us, please engage us to make sure that that plan is figured out and that the change management is in the right place. You'd hate to have everybody show up on Monday morning and go, uh-oh, how does this all work? Because you didn't kind of think through some of those things. So yep. We're happy to help. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. Really good engagement. A lot of great questions. We appreciate that. It feels that these webinars have become, over the last month or two, a little bit more engaging, less talking, or less us just sharing prepared remarks, but engaging and answering your questions. So we hope that you feel that's valuable as well. So a couple of upcoming events. Go to elevityit.com/events. Paul mentioned a webinar this afternoon that we're doing about more news from Microsoft, less exciting, but about how the Office 365 licensing model is changing, specifically the cost model is changing, and some decisions that businesses are going to have to make. So if you'd like to join us for that, you can find that at elevityit.com/events, and any of our other future coffee break or thought leadership events, and hopefully some in-person events here coming soon. Please claim your gift card here. I did hear last week that maybe the QR code didn't work. So maybe grab a screen capture of this or take a picture of your phone with it quick so you can type in the full URL there if you need to. But again, thanks for joining us. Paul, thanks for spending some time sharing with us Microsoft's news about Windows 11. And if we can help with anything in terms of Windows 11 planning or any other kinds of planning, we'd love to be engaged with that. So don't hesitate to reach out to anyone at Elevity to get that scheduled. And have a great rest of your week, a great Friday, and a good weekend.
Thanks. Have a good weekend, everybody.